Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the penultimate Teen Take and Make craft kit from Manlius Library. Penultimate is just a big, long, fancy word for second to the last. We are doing two pretty much do it as you want to kind of crafts today with actually some specific instructions. So, in your kit, you will have received a baggie of little plastic beads. These are Perler beads. We're going to make a design and then melt them with an iron so that they stick together. You have also received a sheet of parchment paper and 2 pieces of contact paper. Those are for the Perler bead project. The other project we're doing today is sponge painting. And for that, you have a sponge, a little baggie of some different colors of paint. Everybody has some version of a pink or purple. Some people have purple, yellow, orange, and a blue. Some have more of a turquoisey blue. Some have more of a blue, but everybody has 4 of the same kind of family of colors. A sponge, as I mentioned, and 2 canvases. For this project, you will also need a pair of scissors, a fairly decent sharp pair of scissors because you're going to be cutting the sponge, and a cup of water. It might not be a bad idea to have a covering on your workspace for when we're painting, and also a cloth because you might get paint on your hands. So we're going to set the Perler bead stuff aside and do the painting project first. The first thing we're going to do is cut the sponge. Now you've got 4 colors, so you can cut your sponge into 4 pieces. You can, of course, use the same piece of sponge for each color, but then you have to wash it in between. Another thing you should have received in your kit is a flyer that has all the information about the summer reading program, so that's very exciting. We have one more craft kit for the spring, summer, and that is going to be shredded paper seed balls and DIY sun catchers. So that'll be a lot of fun. Now, the reason I give everybody 2 canvases instead of one big one is my thought is to put them together and do a painting because it's abstract, and then you'll have 2 that coordinate with each other that you can hang or frame or whatever you want to do. So we're going to put our canvases like this, and we're going to open up our paints. I thought these were nice spring colors that we could do a pretty design with. So the first thing you're going to do is get one of your sponges wet. So we're just going to put it in the water. And you want to soak it, but squeeze it out so that it's really just damp, all the way through damp. And then pick a color and paint. Now, these are little cups. So your sponge isn't going to fit in that way. You could do it on the end, or you can put a little bit of paint out on your workspace and do it that way. So we're going to start with orange, okay? And get as much or as little paint on your sponge as you want, and we're just going to press and kind of walk it off there. Okay, and get a little more, and maybe do that. This is entirely up to your imagination. So let's put a little pink out. Get a little pink on your sponge. Okay, and maybe not quite covered, so it makes a different pattern. And you can experiment with what the different designs will look like. You can actually even, like if you wanted to see what it would look like if you drag it, that's what it'll look like if you drag it. Okay. That might be too much. You want to make sure that the texture of the sponge still shows. The thing about sponge painting is you automatically have something to wipe the paint off your fingers with. Now you can see on this one, there was a water droplet, and that will disrupt your pattern. So you want to kind of make sure that you don't have water on your canvas. You can just keep going with this until you have a pattern or two patterns that you like. And if you want to do two separate, completely different ones, you are also welcome, of course, to do that. I'm going to put the covers back on these paints. They will be perfectly good for another day. And let's put some yellow. It really is almost a beachy vibe with those colors. And this I think I'm going to do on the end. You can see some of it, if you look, you can see how the pattern goes. So there's like lots of small dots there and a big one. This has pretty uniform dots. This one has that's a nice pattern. And this is a little more wonky than the other side. So pick the side that you like. I'm going to go with this one. And I'm just going to add a little bit of yellow just to brighten it. Add a hint of sunshine. You can let it dry. You can let your painting dry and add more. Let's see. We're going to try a twist. Okay. You can, with the paint on the table like this, you can mix colors. The idea with a sponge is to keep the textures so that you can still see the textures. So you don't want to overdo it. Okay? So just keep going until you've got a picture that you like. I actually like how this looks. If I add too much, if you mix them too much, they will start to look like brown. And there's nothing wrong with brown. It's just not the color I'm going for. So I'm going to stop now. And there's my pictures. And as I said, they look good like this. Or you could hang them up as complementary pictures. Or you could put them in two different rooms, or however you want to display them. Okay? I'm going to clean this up and I will show you how we're going to do perler bead art. Okay, so for the perler bead project, you need your baggie of beads. You need your contact paper. Your parchment paper, you'll need at the end. And what I recommend is that you take it and roll it up in the other direction and set it aside so that it kind of gets flat. Because right now it's curved and we need to be able to iron on top of it. So roll it up in the other direction and set it aside. Alternatively, you could put a book. Just lay it on a table and put a book on it, and that'll flatten it out in no time. Okay, so what we're going to do is we just need one of these to start. What you want to do is think about what your design is going to look like. Maybe you're going to do a smiley face. Maybe you're going to do a heart or a rainbow or a flower or just some kind of abstract. You could draw what you want to make right on this contact paper. Now, I recommend starting small to practice. Everybody has pretty much the same amount of beads of all the different colors. So you have enough to make more than one project. So I think for my start, I'm going to make a heart. And I'll put it up here. And I'm just going to draw a heart on my contact paper, okay? And then I'm going to cut it pretty close to that design. And then I'm going to carefully peel off the backing. And you will see if I can get that. If you bend one of the corners and actually make a little crease, it usually makes it easier, to peel. So set the backing aside and put this down sticky side up. Okay. Zoom in on that a little closer. And then you're going to put your beads on it. Now, the important thing to remember is your beads have to be touching. So you're going to put them on like that and cut and like press it down so it sticks to the contact paper. And you want your beads to be touching each other. Because at the end of this, we're going to iron it. That's the one thing I forgot to mention. You will need for this project a hot iron, but not steam. You don't want to use steam for this project. Okay, so this is why, see, you can just follow your design all the way around, but making sure that your beads are touching. Because that way, it'll be much easier to get them to melt together. That one's not quite close enough. Filling in the little corners can be the trickiest part. Now, you'll see that there's a little space there. That's okay because that bead is touching another bead. Each bead has to be touching at least one other bead. Otherwise, when you iron them, some of the beads, if they're not touching anything, will fall right out. I'm gonna scooch that in there. If you have a pair of tweezers that you want to use, they might come in handy. You could sketch your design out on paper ahead of time if you wanted to. Let's see if I can get that up in there. There we go. Whoop. So every once in a while, it's not a bad idea to just give a good push to make sure they're staying stuck to your contact paper. We'll see how that works out. I'm going to move this guy. This is a project that could take a lot of practice. Okay, I'll go on. Kind of doing a little bit of a rainbow thing here. And then we'll pull some purple down. If you do not want to do an iron, if you don't want to use an iron, you can also just take some string and string these beads together and make whatever you'd like. Okay, maybe one more purple. So I used my heart. I got a bit of a design going. I got my little, make sure they're all stuck to the contact paper before you try to flip it over, and then you'll see your design on the other side as well. Okay, so leave that flat. We're going to put the beads away, and I'm going to go get my hot iron. Okay, I've got my iron. It's heating up. Don't ever touch a hot iron. I've got my parchment paper. It's pretty flattened out. That worked pretty well. And I've cut a piece. It's about the same size as my design. And I'm going to put it on top there. Okay? Very carefully. You don't want to iron the contact paper because it will melt and it will make a mess and it will get dangerous. If you want to, you can actually cut even closer around your design, but do it very carefully because your beads will very easily fall off. Okay? I'm trimming that around just a little. Work very carefully around a hot iron. As I said, adult supervision may be required for this. And it's also important that there's no steam. I've turned my iron to the highest setting, and I've turned off the steam and emptied it of all water. Okay, so let's put that there. And we are going to very carefully put that on and just iron it. And you can see it starts to melt. That's going to be really hot. So you don't want to hold the iron onto it for too long. You want to see how I'm constantly just kind of moving it. I've got my parchment paper is long enough to hold it steady, mostly. And you can see they start to melt together. And you can see where it might need a little more. Okay. There we go. Looks like maybe in that yellow area it needs a little more. Okay. So then we're going to flip it over. And we're going to peel off the sticky paper. Set that aside. Then, be careful because it's hot. You want to let it cool. Then you can peel off the parchment paper, and there's your design. And if you want to, you can put the parchment paper back on top and do the same thing on the other side. That will strengthen the bond. Okay? Because they'll melt together on this side too. Again, let it cool a little because plastic, when melted plastic, can be very hot. And there we go. And there's our design. And you can go ahead and make as many as you want to with the perler beads and the contact paper that I've given you. And this is a really cool trick if you don't have the grid to just use your iron and some contact paper to hold your beads together. And there we have a nice, almost a rainbow heart. All right. I'm going to clean this up. I'll be right back for a few final words. So there you go. Sponge painting and perler beads. Two endlessly creative crafts that are great for kicking off summer or ending spring, whichever way you want to look at it. As I mentioned, there's one kit left for this season before we get into summer programming, and that registration has started already. You can pop over to our website at manliuslibrary.org, click on our calendar, and sign up for that. It is seed balls and window clings, suncatcher window clings. Both really fun and creative crafts. I hope that you enjoyed today's craft. I hope that you're looking forward to summer. I know that I am. We've got some really fabulous things going on, so stay tuned for that. Most of them are actually in the flyer that came in your kit this week. Have a great week. I'll see you next time. My name is Lori. I'm the teen librarian at Manlius Library, and you can find me here every other Thursday. Well, you can find me here one more time in 2 weeks on our YouTube channel for Take and Make Craft Kit. Have a great week. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you next time. Happy crafting.